Have you ever met someone who somehow made you feel simultaneously impressed and slightly exhausted all in the same conversation? They're 3 steps ahead before you finish your sentence. They laugh at jokes nobody else caught. They'll debate the color of a stop sign at midnight just because the argument interests them. And you're standing there thinking, what is going on inside that brain? Maybe that person is you. Maybe it's someone you know. Maybe you've always quietly suspected you think differently, and nobody ever had the language to explain why. Here's the thing. High intelligence isn't just a score on a test. Neuroscience is showing us that brains wired for high IQ operate in genuinely distinct ways. Different connectivity, different dopamine sensitivity, different thresholds for stimulation and boredom. And those neurological differences produce some very specific, very recognizable patterns of behavior. Patterns that can look like arrogance, or anxiety, or weirdness, but are actually just the fingerprints of a particular kind of mind. So today, we're going inside those minds. 5 psychological profiles. 5 ways high intelligence actually shows up in real life. Let's see which one makes you go, oh, that's uncomfortably accurate. Picture this. It's Sunday afternoon. There's a report due Monday. Coffee is hot. Desk is clear. And somehow, this person is deep in a Wikipedia rabbit hole about the Roman aqueduct system. Not because it's relevant, not because anyone asked, just because a thought led to a question, and the question became an obsession. And 3 hours later, the report still isn't started, but they could now write a thesis on Roman hydraulic engineering. This is the first profile, the obsessive deep diver. Research on high IQ individuals consistently shows heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for abstract thinking, pattern recognition, and the generation of novel connections. This means their brains are almost biologically allergic to the surface of things. When something catches their attention, the brain doesn't just note it, it tunnels, it cross-references. It asks why 5 layers deeper than most people ever bother to go. The irony? This gift comes packaged with a frustrating side effect. Because once something no longer poses a mental challenge, once it's been understood, mapped, mastered, the brain drops it almost instantly. They can look wildly inconsistent to the outside world, starting projects, abandoning them, picking up random hobbies with intense devotion, then setting them down just as quickly. It's not flakiness. It's a nervous system that's always chasing the next thing that's genuinely hard. Then there's the one who can't just let things be uncertain. You know this person. You give them a half-formed plan and watch their face, a flicker of discomfort. They start asking questions not to be difficult, but because their brain is involuntarily running simulations. What if this fails? What if the assumption is wrong? What's the fallback? The exit? This is the second profile. The anxious analyst. Here's what neuroscience tells us. A 2015 study published in Trends in Cognitive Sciences found a significant correlation between high verbal intelligence and the tendency toward rumination, the mental habit of replaying, anticipating, and over-processing scenarios. The same neural machinery that makes someone excellent at planning and problem-solving also makes it very hard to stop planning. The brain doesn't easily switch modes. It keeps running. This is why highly intelligent people are statistically overrepresented among people who struggle with anxiety. Not because intelligence causes anxiety exactly, but because a brain wired to anticipate and analyze threats in the environment is always, quietly, anticipating and analyzing, even when there's nothing to worry about. Especially then. Actually, the cruelty of it is that they know they're overthinking. They can see it clearly. And then, they overthink the overthinking. It's recursive. It's exhausting. And it's one of the loneliest experiences there is, sitting inside a mind that won't quiet down, surrounded by people who seem perfectly fine. But here's the twist. Not all high IQ profiles show up as intense or anxious. Some of them look almost absent. The third profile is the silent processor. This is the person at the meeting who says almost nothing for 45 minutes, and then makes one observation that reframes the entire conversation. The one who seems disengaged at a party, until suddenly they're the most interesting person in the room, and they switch off just as fast. What's happening neurologically is fascinating. High IQ brains tend to show greater neural efficiency. They use fewer resources to process the same information, which means they get there faster and with less visible effort. But this efficiency has a social cost. When the environment isn't stimulating enough, the brain genuinely underengages. They're not being aloof. They're not performing mystery. They're simply elsewhere, inside their own heads, where the conversation is frankly more interesting. The silent processor often grows up being called a mystery or hard to read. They're told they're intimidating without meaning to be. And here's the painful part. Many of them actually want connection deeply. They just cannot manufacture engagement they don't feel. Their face will betray them every time. Another profile, and this one might sting a little, is the relentless devil's advocate. You propose an idea, a perfectly good idea, and they immediately say, but what if? Not because they oppose you, not because they want conflict, because their brain, almost reflexively, stress tests everything it encounters. High IQ individuals show increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain that detects conflict, flags inconsistencies, and resists premature closure. Their minds won't accept a conclusion until it's been properly challenged. The problem? Nobody told the people around them that this is a form of respect. That being argued with, in this context, means the idea was taken seriously. To most people, it just feels like being undermined. And so the relentless devil's advocate cycles through life, leaving a trail of slightly offended collaborators, genuinely baffled about why people keep taking it personally. The fifth and final profile is perhaps the most quietly fascinating: the gifted underachiever. On paper, this person should be thriving. The raw cognitive horsepower is there, but they're scattered, disorganized, working well below their potential in ways that confuse and frustrate everyone, maybe including themselves. Neuroscience offers a surprising explanation here. High intelligence and ADHD share overlapping neural profiles specifically around dopamine regulation and default mode network activity. Highly intelligent brains often require an unusually high threshold of stimulation to activate sustained motivation. Routine tasks, conventional systems, linear progress, these don't trigger the reward circuitry. The brain waits for something worthy of it, and in the meantime, it drifts. This person isn't lazy. They're chronically under-challenged in exactly the wrong ways. Put them in a crisis. Hand them a problem no one has solved before. Give them genuine stakes, and watch what happens. The underachievement evaporates. The mind shows up, fully and dramatically, for exactly the kind of challenge it's been starving for. So here's where we land. High intelligence is not one thing. It's a constellation of traits, some useful, some inconvenient, some genuinely painful, all rooted in a brain that's wired to engage with the world more intensely than the average. The deep diver who can't stop tunneling, the anxious analyst who can't stop running scenarios, the silent processor who disappears into their own interior, the devil's advocate who stress tests everything they love, the underachiever waiting for a problem worthy of them. Which one resonates? Which profile made you quietly think, yes, that's me? And I've never heard anyone describe it that way? Drop it in the comments. Not because the algorithm needs it though. Sure, it does, but because there's something genuinely powerful about recognizing yourself out loud. And if you know someone in these profiles, share this with them. Sometimes the most useful thing in the world is a frame that finally fits.